Chancellor, one of your current responsibilities is the conduct of business in the Business and Property Courts. Before you hand over the reins and move on to your new appointment as Master of the Rolls in January, congratulations, thank you for agreeing to answer some questions about the current state of the Business and Property Court in Leeds and what the future may hold. 3 years ago, you kindly contributed to the foreword of a Leeds Law Society publication promoting the Business and Property Court in Leeds. You wrote, "The new Business and Property Courts will provide the joined-up thinking for business dispute resolution that has long been overdue, and there will be a superhighway between Leeds and the Rolls building, ensuring that local and international businesses are equally supported across the country in the resolution of their disputes." Both statements necessarily looked ahead, and now that 3 years have passed, it would be very interesting to hear from you what progress has been made.
Well, thank you, Nick. I think that's an extremely good question and an opportune one. We've had the Business and Property Courts across England and Wales for 3.5 years now, just a little bit more. And I would say a massive amount of progress has been made. I feel that the regional centres, including particularly Leeds, which is one of the strongest in the country, have been very well served by the Business and Property Courts. The feedback I get is that solicitors, barristers and judges feel very much part of the whole project, and that we have actually delivered what we said on the tin, which is an inclusive business and property service for national and international users across England and Wales. And I'm pleased to say that the work in Leeds is going up. It's good quality. We provide High Court judges to sit in Leeds when the cases deserve them and merit them, and the judges in Leeds are of a fantastic quality. So I think the project has been a really great success, and I hope that all the regional centres feel a part of the Business and Property Courts as a whole, and that it is an integrated superhighway between London and all the regions.
Thank you, Chancellor, and I agree, the mood on the ground certainly reflects that, and thank you very much. In the international sphere, for many years I worked in Japan as a solicitor and continue to act for Japanese clients. English law is their predominant jurisdiction of choice for international transactions, but resolution of disputes is frequently kept closer to home, with Hong Kong and Singapore being popular. In the foreword, you frequently referred to international dispute resolution and the role of the Business and Property Courts. If you were to pitch the Business and Property Courts to an international audience, what would you say?
Well, that is a very interesting question. I have been at the forefront of promoting the English and Welsh Business and Property Courts to international audiences at a time when we're leaving the EU and some have had doubts about the future. But I think that the offering of dispute resolution in England and Wales is really very strong indeed. We have some USPs, unique selling points, which we should make the best of. First, our judges are of high quality. Our judges have undoubted integrity. The system here is an exhaustive and impressive one, which people like to participate in. But it is, of course, rather a costly system. And I'm trying to do everything I can to make sure that that is addressed by bringing some of the processes online and by allowing for remote hearings, which have been very apparent in the course of the COVID pandemic. There's much to be done, but actually English judges, the English dispute resolution model is something that is extremely attractive to people overseas. They want still to specify English law in their contracts, to specify the UK's jurisdictions in their contracts. And I hope, in fact, I'm sure, they will continue to come here.
Thank you very much. Without doubt, London is the gateway for a lot of business, both international and domestic, and the courts in London have developed accordingly. Leeds is, of course, home to many great businesses and law firms. Yorkshire folk are good at business and like making money. For the Business and Property Court in Leeds to develop, it needs local cases, and too many local practitioners would still rather jump on the train to London. How can this, and indeed they, be turned around?
Well, actually, Nick, I think you're lucky in Leeds because you are a little bit further away from London than some of the business and property court centres. And I think less people in Leeds jump on the train to London at every opportunity than perhaps they do from some other centres. And what I think is extremely important about Leeds is the strength of the legal community there. I feel very strongly whenever I come to Leeds that I'm dealing with a legal community that has a cohesion that one doesn't actually see everywhere. It's a community that works together, that works with business, and that is working to improve the local offering of the business and property courts. So whilst I understand that there will always be some who think that the grass is greener on the London side of the fence, there are so very many that stay in Leeds that what's going on in Leeds is jolly good indeed. I think, how do we stop it? I don't think you'll ever stop it, and I don't think we should ever stop it. If people really feel the case is of very great importance and that they're going to get a better resolution in London, or their clients feel more confident in London, perhaps because they need several High Court judges to give the case attendance rather than just one, or several judges more available because of immediate problems, I can see that they might be entirely justified in getting on that train. But how do we stop it? Again, I think the answer is to make sure that Leeds cases are transferred back to Leeds if they're started in London, and that's happening in appropriate cases, and also that we provide the High Court judges that people sometimes do need in Leeds, and that's what we're doing as well. But don't underestimate the judges we've got there in Leeds now. We have one of the strongest teams there with Judge Klein, with Judge Davis White, and now with Judges Jackson and Kelly in January. This is a very strong team indeed of local people who really understand the community. And because you're so well served, and so well served by the district judges, that I think we'll see less and less of the train hopping.
Thank you, and thank you for your investment in Leeds. And as president of Leeds Law Society, I see the strength of community in Leeds, and I think you accurately reflected that. So thank you for that, and that's great. In terms of Leeds itself, practitioners in Leeds are delighted with the new Nightingale Court at Clothall Court. It has boosted morale in these dark times. In particular, it apparently has a great cafe that serves better coffee. I understand that the facility will only be available until March. Is there any prospect of continuing at Clothall Court or finding suitable alternative premises?
I hope so. I don't have absolute control over that. It's been a tremendous success. I visited Clothall Court. I saw it when His Honour Judge Davis White was actually sitting in the time of COVID, because it's a big space and allows a very large, relatively large number of people to actually be safely in court at a time when everybody has to be socially distanced. So I very much hope it can continue. And even if that Nightingale Court doesn't continue, I hope that we will find other courts that provide a suitable state-of-the-art service for business cases in Leeds, because, as you say, people will only litigate in Leeds if they're given a good service, and part of that service is the courtroom in which the cases can be resolved. But we're working with HMCTS to make sure that you get what you need for your cases.
Thank you, Chancellor. You mentioned good service and COVID. So let me ask, the court staff in Leeds are widely praised and as user-friendly and proactive in finding solutions. Electronic filing is also extremely popular. The mood is that the Business and Property Court in Leeds has not just survived the pandemic, but positively thrived. Are you proud of what have been achieved during these difficult times, both in Leeds and the rest of the north of England?
I certainly am. The north of England has been a shining example to the rest of the country. None of the judges in any of the 4 centres in the north blinked when COVID lockdown began. They simply started doing remote hearings as if nothing had happened, and they did them with tremendous tremendous agility, and I have nothing but admiration for them, not only in Leeds, but also, if I'm allowed to mention the places, Manchester, Liverpool and Newcastle. But I do think that we have to understand one important factor. We've learnt from COVID that we can do remote hearings using the technology, which, by the way, was available years ago. And that is an excellent thing to have learnt. It is good for lawyers, it's good for the parties, and it's good for the courts. But it's not actually the final solution, as it were, to improving the justice system. And I'm looking, as I start, as you mentioned earlier, to look towards my new job at ways in which we can improve the way we resolve civil disputes and business and property disputes in particular in the future. And whilst remote hearings will be part of that, I think another part of it will be bringing a lot of the dispute resolution process online to accord more with the expectations of modern business, and making it, I hope, more speedy, more effective and less costly. I think all those objectives are extremely important, and the remote hearings and the agile response to COVID is only part of the reforms that we're going to need in the future. But that's perhaps, Nick, for another day.
Thank you very much. My final question. The judiciary and other parts of the profession are rightly under scrutiny for their approach to diversity and inclusion. Leeds Law Society recently ran a D&I conference with the National Law Society, where the current Master of the Rolls was a key speaker. I was privileged to welcome HHA Jackson recently on behalf of the solicitors in Leeds, and found her obvious pride in her northern roots refreshing. She's a welcome addition to the already great lineup of judges that we have in Leeds. What do you think are the current blockages to a more diverse profession?
Well, I think everybody knows that I have worked for many years to improve diversity, first at the bar and now within the judiciary. I was delighted to welcome Judge Jackson. Indeed, I found her inauguration ceremony quite moving, hearing some of her own history and how she's travelled to become a circuit judge, and how she intends, as I think you remember, she told us, to stay in Leeds and not to look to London or look elsewhere, which was heartening to hear. But to answer your question, a lot of work needs to be done to improve diversity in the judiciary, but it is being done. The judiciary has just published a 5-year strategy, which requires every judge to be involved in improving the diversity of the judiciary. It's absolutely vital work, because the judiciary will only retain the respect of society and the society of business if it reflects that society. And if all the judges are from one background, it won't do so. And so we have to work without any kind of restriction to ensure that we bring more people from all backgrounds into the judiciary. And we're doing it. And we're doing it quickly. I don't think we can do it quickly enough. I think it has to be our highest priority. Diversity is really everything because of confidence. The courts are only any use if people have confidence in them. But let me just end by saying this. I think we're very lucky in England and Wales. Our population and our businesses really do have confidence in our courts. We can make them quicker, we can make them cheaper, and we can make them more efficient. But we're doing okay, and particularly we're doing okay in Leeds. So Nick, thank you very much for asking me those very important questions.
Thank you very much, Chancellor. Leeds is very proud of its business and property court, and thank you for looking after it and indeed us. And I wish you well for your new role. Thank you.
Thank you.